Bremen, Sacramento, please stay in your tornado shelter. All the lightning is on the northeast, so the worst part of the storm will be after you see a lot of the lightning. It's back in the middle part where the rotation is. We're seeing a lot of the lightning north of Hartford and Beaver Dam. Look at this storm, it's grown. You see right in the middle there where the areas there in red, that's a well-established updraft that's lifting up over almost to 30,000 feet.
Typically your hook or your tornado would occur in the southwestern edge of a severe thunderstorm or supercell.
Right over Hartford, Jeff, these are where these winds are coming together. So you go into Hartford, north there at Beaver Dam. These are very busy areas, Interstate 165, Highway 69. Where is this going? It's racing off to the northeast.
This looks like a funnel, but is that a second funnel right there?
Double-barreled action right here. You have two, multiple, because you have one large vortex, they can spawn multiple tornadoes.
The reason we're looking at these pictures is that is the same system that we'll be working in overnight tonight.
Between Fordsville and Whitesville, Highway 69, you need to be in your tornado-safe shelter.
The tornado warning here for now includes Greenville.
He thought he heard them say that the tornado was a mile wide. Is that even a possibility?
That would be a large wedge if it's a mile wide. That would be an incredibly large tornado if it was a mile wide.
He thought that's what he thought he heard him say.
Well, they're small storms, but in the tornado, that would be a very large wedge if that was the case. Jeff, if we have a mile-wide tornado, we're going to have to keep an eye on that one, even though it's outside of our area right now.
We definitely are, and you know, that kind of a tornado, those are you know, once, twice in a career, a 30-year span is what I'm saying here.
I can't emphasize enough, if you live in Madisonville and Dixon and Clay, and Providence, I mean, that's a large wedge if that's confirmed a mile wide.
We're going to go right from where we believe the tornado is right there. You can see it just as plain as day. This is definitely the most frightening to me that we would have this storm hold together. And we're making assumptions here, but I think it's a safe assumption that this thing could conceivably hold together and make it all the way up into Hopkins County and perhaps the rest of the tri-state. This is our sister station in Cape Girardeau. He's tracking the same storm that Byron and I have been looking at.
Into Eddyville, and then you get up into Dawson Springs. I mean, that's large by any stretch there. So that fits, could be a mile wide. That's just it's, you know, in contact with the ground, obviously, and it's being backlit there, but that's a gigantic tornado.
Our news director just informed me that our Cape Girardeau station was reporting that that tornado has been on the ground, the one you're showing, and the one I'm going to show you now has been on the ground. And there we go now for Hopkins County, and this is for that tornado warning. It has been on the ground for 150 miles. A long track tornado will probably turn out to be high-end EF3 or EF4. Please, if you know people in Hopkins County, call them. Tell them to get into shelter now, and if you're in a mobile home in Hopkins County, you've got to get out and get to a public shelter. Go someplace where you have substantial structure around you if you can. But you've got to do it now. You've got time, but it's moving fast. It's going to be up here close to Dawson Springs. That thing is a monster. It is dangerous, and you need to heed the warnings now while you can. There are about 14,000 people in the path of this storm. This is a tornado on the ground, a large, destructive tornado, deadly. We've had fatalities back around Arkansas.
I mean, look at that. It's being backlit either by some lightning or some street lightning out there as well. It's an incredible picture, but it lets you know, I mean, this is still, it's not lifted or anything, it's still holding together. And Hopkins County, Dawson Springs, please get to your shelter.
Okay. Jeff.
Yeah, we can't say it enough, and we need to really emphasize here, this is the real thing. You saw the pictures, we know about the damage, we know the path that it's on, so this is the time now to move. It has not fizzled for 150 miles. That is an incredible length for a tornado to be on the ground. I think I've said this only a few times in 33 years here. I've never seen anything this strong here. Never.
Multiple meteorologists are calling out Dawson Springs. Madisonville will be next.
Yes.
Large wedge on the ground, perhaps 1 mile wide, over Princeton, Kentucky, Dawson Springs. You get up towards Beulah, Arlington, Morton's Gap, St. Charles, you guys will be under the gun there again, into Nortonville as well, and then into Madisonville, especially out towards the west end of town.
Look at the size of the hook on here. I mean, this thing is like textbook supercell long track tornado. You see that bright area there, that very dark area, that's the debris ball, and then you have this circulation going, winds coming in this way, feeding the tornado energy. The picture of it from a three-dimensional view, and you can even see some very strong returns, possibly debris aloft within that storm, up at 20,000 feet or more. So this is a big one.
It's right on Dawson Springs. Right on Dawson Springs. Dawson Springs, we've been calling that town out now for quite a while, and then portions there, just all of Hopkins County. A large tornado there just to the south and west, coming right into Dawson Springs.
I realize we're very tight on that, but as Byron has been emphasizing over and over, Dawson Springs, you've got to be locked down right now. If you are not in a safe place right now in Dawson Springs and this thing holds together, there will be fatalities there.
This is down right smack into Dawson Springs. See the rain around the spinning core. On the northeast part of the storm, it looks like a kidney bean there, or a backward C right over Dawson Springs.
Byron, just for clarification, that bar that you're seeing on there, that is the way the Weather Service indicates a dangerous tornado, and we're looking at potentially a tornado emergency, meaning widespread damage, fatalities, injuries, and such as it moves across Dawson Springs and then up the road here toward Earlington. Please, in these areas right now, especially from Earlington back to Dawson Springs, anything in that region, Interstate 69, Highway 112, 109, all those spots, we have a large tornado coming up, mile wide at times.
And that's where the action is, just out to the west there,
And
at
this
the
is-
downtown area
Yeah,
in
this is-
downtown Madisonville. But the worst of it is right up over Dawson Springs. There's looking to Madisonville. Look at all the lightning there. That's lightning that generally is going between the clouds there. And now, wow, a lot of electricity in the air. If you're in Madisonville, especially out on the west side of town, you want to get to your tornado-safe shelter. Should already be there, but you still have time. Now let's go back to Doppler radar. Dawson Springs, tornado from Princeton all the way up to Dawson Springs, just working towards Madisonville. But the worst of that cell is in downtown Dawson Springs.
But now is the time. It's too late. If you haven't gotten to shelter, a better place for shelter than just wherever you are. Get away from windows, wrap in blankets, bicycle helmet on, whatever you have to do. But hopefully you are in a safe place right now. This is a kind of rural, hilly area out here. It's raining, it's dark, you're not going to see anything, so don't look. Go to the basement or get into a safe place now. If you're in a mobile home in southern Hopkins County, go to a neighbor's house, family, public shelter, any place, but you've got to get out.
Where are you? What are you looking at right now? And what have you seen this evening?
Right now I'm just south of Earlington on US 41 in the Barnsley area. And we've got quite a bit of damage here. Trees down, power lines down, numerous trailers and some houses that are just completely blown off the foundation.
Okay.
There's been some injuries in this area. We've actually dug through some rubble and were able to extricate some people from some locations. And then I know Dawson Springs has been hit pretty hard as well. I've got people down that way as well.
Okay. What can you tell us about the number of injuries and the extent of the injuries?
We're still trying to assess that right now. And right now, there's a train that has been turned over with the wind that came through here, the tornado that came through here in this area as well. So we're trying to assess what type of material we've got on that train as well, working with CSX on that. Injuries-wise, what we've seen in this particular area has been minor. I know that in Dawson Springs, I know there's some injuries there, but I don't know to the extent of them either. There were 2 children in this Barnsley area that were missing, and they were actually found in a bathtub, not where the house was originally standing. From the good Lord above, they're okay, and they don't appear to be hurt at all.
A miraculous rescue in the December 10th storms. Good evening, I'm Randy Moore. A 3-month-old and a 15-month-old placed in a bathtub just before the tornado hit Barnsley. That tub ripped from the grandmother's home as the storm cut a path through their Muhlenberg County community. Watch now as deputies desperately search for those babies.
Hey, hang on. Before you go, hang on.
15 months old.
Hang on.
White.
I know.
Male.
Hey, baby.
We got the feed, or take a 15-month-old. Central, can you send us to the center?
Hey, baby.
Hey, oh my God. Oh my God,
We're going to try to get them to you today.
Move easy. Get that one out. Move it easy. Okay.
There you go. Good deal. Good deal. She okay? What do we got? Okay.
No cuts on her leg.
That's both of them. That's both of them.
Anybody else?
There's one of them right here.
Both of them are okay,
Oh,
man.
praise God, Lord Jesus, I love you. Oh, thank you, Jesus.
Just get in the car with him
Oh,
and
thank you, Jesus.
get him dry, okay?
Thank you, Jesus.
And look here.
Here's the little one.
Yeah,
one right
thank
here.
you, Jesus.
I told you we'd get him.
When Clara Lutz learned a tornado was about to rip through her neighborhood, she and her grandchildren were forced to take shelter in the bathroom. She describes what happened next as nothing short of a miracle. Clara Lutz watches her 15-month-old and 3-month-old grandchildren every weekend she can. On Friday night, when a tornado was just miles from her home, she did everything she could to protect them. She got them in the bathtub with blankets, pillows, and a Bible.
I felt the rumbling. I felt the shaking of the house. Next thing I knew, the tub had lifted and it was out of my hands. I couldn't hold on. Oh my God.
The tub ripped out of the floor with the 2 babies inside. With the darkness from the tornado, Lutz feared they were gone.
I was looking everywhere to see where the tub may be. I had no clue at all where these babies was. All I could say is, Lord, please bring my babies back to me safely. Please, I beg thee.
Her entire house stripped down to the foundation. In the chaos, she says the water tank from the tub hit her in the back of the head. Still, she went outside and searched for anyone who could help. And in her yard, the bathtub, upside down on the grass. Sheriff's deputies found it, and underneath, the babies.
The sheriff come down. I got in the sheriff's car right down at the end of my driveway. They opened up the door and brought me Caden, my 15-month-old. It wasn't long after that they brought baby Dallas, my 3-month-old, brought him to me. He had a big old goose egg on the back of his head. We didn't know what was wrong.
Lutz says Dallas had bleeding on his brain. He was taken to Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville, but before he even arrived, she says the bleeding stopped.
A Madisonville man got a text from his mother in Dawson Springs saying, "I love you." It was the last communication he would ever have from her. The mother, Marcia Hall, and her sister, Carol Grisham, were in Hall's home when the tornado came violently churning down School Street. Billy West rushed to the neighborhood. His mother's house was gone, but he could not find her or his aunt until the next morning.
And we found them Saturday morning about probably 75 to 100 feet away from the home together.
Yeah, you showed me the house. The foundation is all that's left, and there's a car sitting where your mom's kitchen was.
Yes, that's, and I think sometimes I'm like, Mom, if y'all could have just got in the car, looking at the car versus the house, she may have been here, but, God only knows.
The further we get from the tornadoes last weekend, the more stories we learn of people surviving and coming face to face with tragedy. Robinson Miles joins us live after meeting with one man trying to cope with losing a child.
Randy, all the people I've talked to since the tornadoes this past weekend, they're trying to strike a balance between being grateful for surviving and all that they have and being sad for everything they've lost. And that's even true for someone like Doug Kuhn, who's trying to find his way through having lost his 2-month-old daughter. This is what's left of Doug's mother-in-law's house, where he and his family went to weather the storm. They thought it would be safer since they live in a mobile home. They were secured in the bathroom, and they're still not sure if the house was dragged away or picked up and dropped nearby. After making sure their other 2 boys were okay, they thought they were in the clear.
I thought everything was good. In my mind, hey, we're all gonna make it. We're all beat up, but we're gonna make it. We all just lived through this.
Then they noticed their daughter, Oakland, wasn't herself. She was life-flighted to Evansville and then to Louisville, where doctors told them if she lived, she would be brain dead. Doug and his wife decided together to remove life support.
I can't sit there and watch her suffer like that. She can't either.
It's not hard to see how much Doug loved her, and he thinks of her as exceptional.
She was an angel, man. She really was. She was the best baby. Like, no matter what kind of day I was having. I'm sorry. No matter what kind of day I was having, I could have the worst day ever, but as soon as I got home and I seen her, that was good.
Now they're having to turn their attention to their other 2 boys and be strong for them.
It's hard. It really is, because I try not to break down in front of them, because I don't want them to break down too bad either. But I know they have to go through the grieving process just like I do.
For now, he says he's focused on giving them a good Christmas. Now, Doug told me today that despite how much pain he and his wife are in, they wanted me to know how grateful they are for all the people around them, all their loved ones who have reached out to make sure that they're okay and make sure that they know that they're loved. Reporting live in Dawson Springs, Robinson Miles, 14 News.
Well, Jessica Costello talked to one man in Dawson Springs who says he is just happy to be alive to tell his story.
And people have asked me what it was like to go through it and what it sounded like, and I keep telling them words cannot explain it. There's no words that would do it justice.
You try it. Just try and find the words to describe the ruthless storm that killed people you know and love.
And they told us that their daughter's fiance and their oldest kid were sucked up in the tornado. And they still haven't found the 2 youngest ones. I mean, knowing that you're never going to see them again, it's just unreal.
That's just one of the horror stories that Bill Payne told me. Reliving Friday night, his reaction incredibly raw.
When they said it was heading directly toward us, so we all got into our laundry room over there with pillows and blankets and everything.
Holding their breath, pillows and blankets, providing the tiniest bit of comfort, shielding a family from the piercing debris and the devastating reality right outside of their door.
And I had my rosaries with me, and I just started praying. And suddenly we heard what sounded like a loud train. And the more intense it got, the harder I prayed.
Payne says that's when he and his family grabbed each other's hands.
The next thing I know, it sounded like a bomb went off in the living room.
And what they saw next was indescribable.
Afterwards, I came out here and I kind of looked around and saw the damage in here, and I walked outside and saw all the damage outside, and it looked like someone had dropped a nuclear bomb.
What once made up their small, tight-knit community now scattered across miles.
One of the main things I prayed about was, if I lose everything, I don't care. It's just, please let my family survive. That I cannot replace my family or friends.
Do you feel like God heard your prayer?
Most definitely, most definitely.
The skies have now cleared, the darkness gone, except every time Bill Payne takes a breath.
That's about the only word I can come up with is catastrophic.
In Hopkins County, Jessica Costello, 14 News.
Jessica Costello sat down with one Dawson Springs family recalling the night they lost everything.
It was a couple miles away. You know, we thought we had just a few more minutes when everything just fell. It was all gone.
A mattress, some blankets, and a few boxes. You could call it a survival kit against a nearly 200-mile-per-hour killer.
I had Jeremy grab some boxes of diapers to put on our other hallway wall to kind of hold the mattress up.
Alexis and Jeremy huddled in their hallway with their 3 young boys, but as quickly as that tornado barreled through the town, darkness.
I didn't know what was on me. I knew stuff was. I couldn't tell what. All I do is just look around and nothing was there.
A familiar weight crushing his body, pinning his family against the ground.
And then she told me the house is on you. And I didn't know what to do at the point.
The weight of their entire lives on his back.
I ended up getting pelted in the back with brick. My 5-year-old was pinned by that same brick and he broke his arm. The bathtub that's behind me ended up hitting me in the back. I had a tree limb go through my arm that the brick fell on top of, so I was pinned under it.
In 15 seconds' time, a destructive beast took everything from this family.
Even now, I feel like the worst mother in the world for not being able to keep him safe.
And from a mom who was doing her very best to protect her kids, right back into the darkness.
And everything in there is gone, their beds, their toys. We don't know where any of it is, and I know that had I not gotten them out, we wouldn't know where my kids are either. But I don't really know if that makes me feel any better.
It's a helpless feeling.
Okay, let me grab these diapers real quick.
Losing everything, including a best friend.
She was my favorite dog. She was my favorite dog. My favorite dog.
It's okay.
A small embrace from Mom.
We'll get through this, okay?
Okay.
I promise. I love you.
Masking some pretty heavy feelings for a 5-year-old.
It was bad. I'm not sure how we're still here.
Now it's time to start over. Holding on to their memories now covered in dust, forever reminding this family of a horrific night.
This right here just showed us that you never know when your last second is going to be.
Many people lost their lives.
In Hopkins County, Jessica Costello, 14 News.
Like many organizations, the Morganfield Police Department has been helping with the recovery effort down in Hopkins County.
We've done everything from recovery of a deceased body to straight line searches yesterday, walking through creeks and places where houses used to be.
But while they were there, something caught their eye. Little Emily White opening gifts outside her home.
My mom was worried that the presents were going to get ruined, so Mom's like, well, we're just going to come out here and we're going to open the gifts. And I reckon he's seen them doing that, and so that opened up his heart, you might as well say.
To come across folks like Chad Lee and his daughters, just watching her face and watching her unwrap those presents, and her sister too. When we walked away, we all looked at each other and said, man, we've got to do something. And almost immediately the idea of a toy drive came up.
So Morganfield Police posted it on Facebook, and their community came up clutch. In 2 days, there was enough money donated to buy $10,000 worth of Christmas gifts for any children who wanted them in the Dawson Springs area.
Just so happens, me and the chief of police, some of the perks is you know who Santa Claus is. So we called him. He was willing to load up, come over here and visit these kids a little bit early.
We wasn't sure if we was going to be able to have Christmas ourselves, and we was able to have it, thankfully, for complete strangers stepping up to the plate whenever it really counted.
Declaring a state of emergency certainly doesn't mean any family should panic.
I am formally announcing a disaster proclamation for Illinois.
Stay home if you're sick, except to get medical care.
I want folks to understand this is going to affect your daily life.
EVSC superintendent announced the EVSC will close for 2 weeks starting on Monday, March 16th through the 27th.
COVID-19 has now been confirmed in the tri-state.
We all knew that it was just a matter of time. Well, the time has occurred.
The more people who are practicing what we're preaching, the faster we will get through this as a state, as a city, as a nation.
This is us against the coronavirus. And all we need from people is to be really good teammates. We had a church that had a preacher from Texas come down to Dawson Springs March 15th and 16th for a revival. When he left, multiple families were sick.
Evansville's mask mandate is in effect right now.
Mayor Lloyd Winnecke and leaders are asking people to wear masks when inside all indoor public spaces, including public transportation.
The EVSC has made it official now. The start of school is going to be pushed back 2 weeks.
People are going to die as a result of the current surge that's going on in southwest Indiana, and we have the power to do something about it.
Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb announcing additional resources for long-term care facilities that have registered outbreaks of COVID-19.
The numbers are driven by personal behavior. And when people knowingly do things
that they, knowing that they're positive or knowing that they have been exposed, but still going out, it's immensely frustrating.
We've been fighting for 9 months against this terrible virus, and today we take our vaccines to say the virus stops with us.
Today is going to be the most optimistic report I've been able to give you. The most optimistic report I've been able to give you since the very beginning of this pandemic.
Just really relieved and feel safe, starting to feel safe again and live in the now and not live in fear.
It has been a year. On March 12, 2020, 14 News brought together the top experts from across the tri-state to talk about the then virtually unknown coronavirus.
That night, many of our guests were live, and we welcomed them with handshakes changed in mid-thrust to elbow bumps, with the fear of contact spread just becoming known.
From no mask to double mask, it seemed the rules just kept changing, but the fear or the doubt kept growing.
So where are we now?
We're bringing back many of the same experts for Coronavirus March 2021. Let's see where we are now with our Samantha Johnson.
We are now 4 months into vaccination efforts here in Indiana.
On April 9th, 2020, we noted during our second COVID-19 special, 341 people tested positive in the tri-state, and 9 people had already died from the virus. Since then, we've mourned the loss of hundreds more. Sharon Tyson of Hopkins County lost her father last spring.
And he was telling us what he was going to have for supper, and he got to pick his own meal. And we said, well, we'll see you tomorrow, not knowing that was going to be it.
Dr. Porter, everything we're hearing about Omicron is couched in uncertainty because it is so new. But first, so far, have people had mild symptoms with it?
Jackie, the news out of South Africa, where it looks like this variant started, has been relatively favorable in terms of the severity of illness that it's causing. So it's still early for us to know, as it continues to expand globally, what the mortality rate's going to look like. But early information says while it's pretty contagious, it may not be overly more deadly than what we're used to.
The family says both children still don't feel well, and after days of asking Walgreens about this, we're finally getting an answer from them.
It's safe to say it's been a very long week for Alexandra and Joshua Price.
Very stressful.
Last Monday, Alexandra and Joshua say they went to get their flu shots with their 4- and 5-year-olds at the Walgreens on St. Joseph Avenue. And the family says the flu shot was not what they got at all.
5:37 p.m., Walgreens called me to say there was a mix-up. We did not receive the flu shot. And I'm like, well, what do we get? He's like, you got the COVID-19 shot. And instantly I was like, well, what does this mean for my kids?
The family says their smallest boy started to get a fever. In the days that followed, the family says they took their kids to the cardiologist.
She said our daughter was having higher blood pressure than she would like, to keep an eye on that. Lucas, our son, was having tachycardia.
And now an update on Perry County Sheriff Alan Malone. As you may know, he battled COVID-19, but you may not know that he's also recovering from a stroke and learning to manage a new diabetes diagnosis. He spoke to our Jessica Costello on his road to recovery, and it's a story you'll only see on 14 News.
Not many people do the kind of work that's so important that you call them by their title. But sheriff is one of those jobs.
Okay, Sheriff, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Perry County Sheriff Alan Malone. He's worked in law enforcement for 30 years, but he encountered one of the biggest challenges of his life in January when COVID first sidelined him. It started with what he calls the worst headache of his life.
It's not a good thing when you just kind of get dropped off at the hospital, because they would not let my wife in. And I remember the first time I was in the hospital, it was very hard to see her leave, just simply because I didn't know what was going on.
Suddenly, the sheriff's job was simply to get better, but it wouldn't be an easy one. His wife Denise also had the coronavirus. She couldn't be by his side. His health failing, he was taken to the hospital and learned he was diabetic, a whole new set of challenges for someone who was already too sick.
And I was very worried about what was going on with me. I've never been sick before, but this COVID hit me pretty hard.
But his wife, and it turns out an entire community, including friends in neighboring counties, were rallying behind him in the hospital. He got a message in this hospital to go look out the window.
And they kept saying, I need you to come to the window, I need you to come to the window. And I looked out, and maybe 30 to 40 police cars turned on, and I was able to see all my people there standing out there with all their overhead lights.
His spirits lifted, but his body weakened. The next thing he knew, he says he woke up on a helicopter on his way to a different hospital.
I was very scared because I had no idea what had happened to me or what kind of, how bad that I got. And upon that, I learned that while I was there, I had a stroke.
A stroke that made even the simplest things more challenging, like counting back coins.
And I remember my very first time, they wanted me, they gave me a lot of change to count. And I really thought this was not necessary again, and I could not get past any over $1.98. So I counted it twice, and as high as I could count at that time was $1.98.
Over the weeks, as dedicated to his job of recovery as ever, the sheriff is healing, gaining strength, gaining the courage to open up about what he's been through. Gaining. In Perry County.
I don't know if that's ever able to be put in words, how much support I got from the entire county.
Jessica Costello.
And to see that many people coming to my aid was just an amazing thing that I can't explain.
14 News.
We are working to learn how that deputy was shot in Posey County tonight. We are told that the deputy was shot in New Harmony, rushed to the hospital. Troopers say the deputy was shot when by a suspect when they were on a check welfare call. When the deputy was shot, we're told deputies returned fire and hit the suspect. Both the suspect and the deputy are at Deaconess Midtown being treated. We will have a live report from the hospital in just moments. This is someone that obviously meant a lot to the community there. Give us the scope of what you can gather of how people are feeling today.
It's a very obvious thing when you try and describe a funeral. Obviously, I think we know the emotions that come with death, and especially, like you just mentioned, somebody so prominent in a small community like this. But I mean, people passing by, as you can already see the tears swelling in their eyes.
Jasmine Brown is in Vanderburgh County Jail facing murder and drug dealing charges in connection to the death of 3-year-old Kamari Opperman.
It's a big eye opener. If I wish I can go back in time.
I read Brown the police affidavit with her statements to police about that night. Today, she disagreed with most of it. Brown was roommates with Kamari's mom, McKaylee Opperman. Police say when they found Kamari unresponsive at her grandparents' home, they went to search Jasmine and McKaylee's home. Police say they found one of Jasmine's sons alone and had to give him Narcan. Police say one officer broke protocol to get the child to the hospital as soon as possible, or they say he may not have made it.
If the pills that were there were out of reach for my son, there was no way he could have gotten into any of them.
Brown says she locked the door to her bedroom that night. Police say the kids had gotten into the pills in Jasmine's nightstand while she was at work.
I don't believe that it was my stuff that her kids got into.
Brown says when she learned her charges, she was shocked.
I just don't understand why I'm being charged with felony murder. I wasn't at the home when McKaylee's kids got into pills. I wasn't there.
Stephen Schaefer told me this has been the hardest week of his life. He lost his wife Braylon and his 1-year-old son Weston in the Audubon Parkway crash. Despite his grief, he was able to make a tough decision that is now helping save more than 30 other children.
This kid was the best thing that ever happened to me. Perfect, beautiful, always smiling, just happy.
In the past week, Stephen Schaefer's life has completely changed. First, he lost his wife Braylon in a car crash last Friday on the Audubon Parkway. Injured in the crash, his 1-year-old son Weston was flown to Louisville for intensive care. But when Stephen arrived, the doctors had more bad news.
It was such an unreal moment that somebody sitting there looking at me, telling me that this is it. His heart kept beating. His lungs kept pumping, and he was relentless.
He says after a while, Weston grabbed his finger and responded to his touch.
I think Weston was kind enough to tell his papa goodbye. Once they did the test and they declared him to be, 100% brain dead, that little heart was still beating.
Stephen's whole family was there to say goodbye.
And they were all standing in that room, watching that heartbeat, watching those lungs, and that's when I knew this was important. This is what he was supposed to do, and this is why we are all here.
Inspired by Weston's strength, Stephen offered his son's body for organ donation.
And the minute that everything went through, they told us that phone was going off.
Hundreds of calls came in, all people eager for something that could save their children's lives. Something Weston could provide.
Like my little kid, my beautiful baby boy, he was a hero, dude. He got a medal. And it's the second highest honor that just a civilian can get. It was this beautiful medal. And they wanted to let us know that your son's a hero.
Stephen was told of a 6-month-old boy who has never been able to eat.
It's my little ham, my little eating machine. He got Weston's tummy.
He says it's allowing him to move through grief.
That 6-month-old that's going to get to enjoy those awesome meals, we fed that tummy for 13 months. They're gonna know. that was Weston Tank Samuel Schaefer's tummy in there, because he's gonna be craving some chicken nuggets and some Cocoa Puffs, and they're gonna be doing some grocery shopping.
Weston's donations have already helped 37 children. More are on the way.
We get to this. We could smile. We can be proud. We can be happy.
We are a few minutes away from the implosion. I want to step out of the way so you can actually take in the last time you're going to see this building here towering over Evansville.
Joining us this morning is the Executive Director of Evansville's Department of Metropolitan Development, Kelly Gores. Kelly, thank you so much for waking up early with us and being with us to witness this historic event.
Mayor, have you ever seen something like this before?
Not live, only on YouTube.
Okay, so obviously the 420 Main building is gone, the original Old National Bank Tower. Can you talk to me about knowing that building is gone now, the history that was inside of there? What are you feeling?
You know, just about 30 minutes ago, I started to feel really surreal about the entire situation.
Back in 2015, Olympic gold medalist Jackie Young helped bring home a state title for the program. This season, the starting point guard is an inspiration to the entire team.
Lexi Smith is a four-sport athlete. She's played basketball since she was in 5th grade, and now at Princeton Community High School, she's the starting point guard as a sophomore.
When COVID-19 shuts down pools, where does an Olympic gold medalist swim?
They were training in a small neighborhood pond, no lanes, no flags, but plenty of open water.
We were lucky enough to run by a local triathlete, and he had set up some buoys in this pond outside of his house. And he said, you know, come on by and swim when you guys need to. So that was one of our stops, and we were swimming at the pond.
Back in the U.S. after medaling 3 times in the 2020 Olympics.
Yeah, and she talked to our Samantha Johnson about the highs and the lows of her time in Tokyo.
Back in the USA with more Olympic hardware, Evansville's Lily King says she's feeling good and happy to be home.
It had been such a long ride, like leading up to it. Like, and 4 years is normally long enough as it is, and then to add another year onto that.
So could we see Lily King and the red, white, and blue again, perhaps in Paris in 2024?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll be definitely training through Paris, and then after that's kind of up in the air. Not totally sure about where my career is going to go after that, but
for sure we'll be training through Paris.